Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video we're going to be taking another look at the RDF LT, or the Rapid Deployment Force light tank. This is an Era 2 Western Alliance premium light tank that has recently had some balance changes to it with the update on the 14th of February, which was when the Valiant season started. So I'm going to tell you what's changed to this tank, how this 75mm autoloading gun differs. We're going to compare to a few other autoloading Era 2 premium light tanks, and then I have 3 gameplays for you to show off how the newly balanced RDF LT performs on the battlefield. Just before we get into the main subject of today's video, I'd like to apologise again for being off for slightly over a week. Had some more family situation stuff to deal with, some more dog sitting. Dog's just gone back home with the girlfriend, so I'm able to now sit down and make a video. So that's the reason for my absence again. But yeah, the videos will be coming more and more steadily over the next coming weeks, and of course there'll be a review of the brand new WoT premium tank that comes out tomorrow on the 28th of February as I'm recording this video. So the RDF LT, I've got all the information on this tank over here on Excel. We're going to be comparing to the G.I. Joe Mauler, which I believe you can still find in the store at least until tomorrow, and also the G.I. Joe Armadillo, because they're the only other premium Era 2 light tanks that have autoloaders. And the G.I. Joe Mauler is very, very similar to the RDF LT in very many ways, because it basically is the same tank, just with some altered statistics. So we're going to go over what that is, and I also have this sheet here on Excel to show you what has changed from the RDF LT before the balancing and after. So first we'll have a quick look at what they have actually changed with the article for the update notes on the update for the February the 14th update for the Valiant season. Here's the RDF LT. They've changed the terrain resistances, they have slightly improved them, and they've improved your dispersion penalty during rotation and during movement to make the gun handling a little bit better, and also to make this a little bit quicker over the different terrain. And in terms of the 75mm gun, they've buffed the aim time and they've buffed the accuracy. They've also dramatically increased the reload time, but that's because they have buffed the damage from 205 to 320 on its standard and premium rounds, and from 250 to 390 damage on its HE rounds. But we're going to go into more depth over here on Excel. We'll quickly have a look at what's changed between the old RDF LT before the balancing now and what has changed since, and how that affects the stats. So as you can see, this is a 6-shot auto-loading gun, a 75mm 6-shot autoloader. Previously, it had 205 alpha damage on its standard and premium rounds and 250 on its HE. As we have just discussed, that's been buffed to 320 and 390 damage. What does that mean in terms of its clip potential? Well, it used to have 1,230 damage per clip, and you could deal that in 7.5 seconds, as it does have a 1.5 second intra-clip reload. Now that means that you have a 1920 damage clip, as the alpha damage has been increased, and you can still deal that in the same amount of time. So that is a good plus for the newly balanced RDF LT. 1920 damage in 7.5 seconds is not to be sniffed at, especially for an Era 2 light tank. So in terms of the gun handling and the DPM and what it means for the RDF LT, well, your aim time, as we have discussed, has dropped to 1.7 seconds and your accuracy has been improved. So that's all pluses for the newly balanced RDF LT. And what that means in terms of DPM, however, is a little bit unfortunate. The DPM used to be pretty damn good at 6.5k damage per minute. That has dropped to 4,042 due to that increase in the reload time for the clip potential. But the penetration, especially if you're using the premium rounds, is pretty decent for an Era 2 light tank, especially when you're getting up close and personal and circling your enemies. And I think they're trying to make this more consistent with the improved dispersion during movement, and yeah, making these magazines more consistent, but they are making them harder, or longer I should say, to dish out. So you've just got to pick your battles a little bit more carefully, but when you do have that better clip potential, and you still have that same 7.5 seconds to deliver all of your 6 rounds, which means you can get in and out of your engagements very quickly and use the great mobility of this tank to avoid taking any fire. But now we're going to quickly have a look at the RDF LT, which is the balanced version of this tank, and we're going to compare to the G.I. Joe Mauler and the G.I. Joe Armadillo. The RDF LT, as we have discussed, is a 6-shot 75mm gun which can deal 1920 damage per clip in 7.5 seconds. The Mauler does have the same 75mm 6-shot autoloader. It deals 1920 damage, as does the RDF LT, but it deals it in a little bit longer time, 10 seconds, as it has a longer intra-clip reload. And the G.I. Joe Armadillo here on the right is a 16-shot autoloader with a 60mm gun. It can deal 1440 damage per clip in 9 seconds. So as we can see, the colour coding here, the best goes to the newly balanced RDF LT, then the G.I. Joe Mauler, and the G.I. Joe Armadillo falls behind in that regard. But we're going to start with the bonuses of these tanks, as they are premium tanks, and I believe you can still pick up the Mauler and Armadillo in the store at least until tomorrow. It might be even a little bit longer than that, but the RDF LT has a 60% silver bonus, as does the Mauler. That's better than the Armadillo's 55% silver bonus. In terms of the Commander XP, the RDF LT and the Mauler have 10%, whereas the Armadillo has a slightly improved 15%. And in terms of the XP bonus on all of these tanks, it's the same at 15%. Now we're going to go on to the hit points of these tanks, and as you can see, the RDF LT and the Mauler have the same 2,400 hit points, so enough to take between sort of 3 and 5 rounds per battle, and it is 300 better than the 2,100 hit points on the Armadillo, so that's a plus point for the RDF LT there and the Mauler. In terms of your view range, which is pretty important for a light tank, not so much as in World War II with the different mechanics as the True Vision systems in Cold War, but it's still nice to have that good view range, and you have a very healthy 550 meters view range on the Mauler and the RDF LT, and that's 50 meters better than the Armadillo. Here we come on to the steel concealment rating, and it's going to look a little bit different for the Mauler because that technically comes with a skin, and that will improve your concealment rating, so we're going to discard that. It's the same as the RDF LT, which has a steel concealment rating of 276.8 meters, so a very sneaky boy indeed, especially when you try and boost that up with your commander and equipment setup. It's only slightly worse than the Armadillo, which is a much smaller tank, so yeah, although it's the worst in this comparison, it's still a pretty good concealment rating. And now we're going to go on to the mobility, and I think we can all see where this is going. The Armadillo is going to come out on top in pretty much every aspect. As you can see here, most of it is highlighted in green. So the RDF LT has a 400 horsepower engine, the same as the other two tanks in this comparison. It has the worst power to weight at 29.07 power to weight, slightly worse than the Mauler and a lot worse than the 39.17 on the Armadillo. Again, it's the worst in terms of its top forward speed, which is 64.4 kilometers an hour, falling behind the other two tanks as we can see here, and it's a lot slower than the Armadillo. 64.4 kilometers an hour is pretty fast if you mainly play World War II, but as we all know, in Cold War, a lot of tanks can go that. A lot of main battle tanks, you know, the heavy tanks, medium tanks, and some of the tank destroyers can go that speed. So it's pretty slow for a light tank, and you're going to want to try and improve that. with your commander and equipment setup, and I've chosen to use the traction system, and I'll tell you my full commander and equipment setup in just a little bit. But yeah, the worst top forward speed, and that does translate to its reverse speed as well, 27.4 kilometers an hour in reverse. Not as good as the 32 kilometers an hour in reverse on the Mauler, and it falls way behind the reverse speed of the Armadillo, which is 38 kilometers an hour. Next, we're going to go on to the whole traverse, and 40 degrees a second on the RDF LT. It's the same as the Mauler. It's pretty decent, especially when you do get up to your top speed, but it does fall behind that very nuisance of a tank, the Armadillo, at 46 degrees a second on the Armadillo. In terms of the turret traverse, it does have the best turret traverse in this comparison at 60 degrees a second. Your turret moves very, very fast, so you can get your gun round, and this is especially good when you are circling people. It means that if you're auto-aiming at a sort of mid to close range, you're more than likely going to hit most of your shots, as your gun will be able to keep up with the target you are circling, and that's the same as the Mauler, and the RDF LT is better than the Armadillo in this regard, which has 50 degrees a second on the turret. So not the best mobility on the RDF LT. Of course, you do have that improved terrain resistance that was balanced on the 14th of February, but you can get up to speed pretty well. You just can't go any quicker unless you do use the mobility equipment, and I highly advise you use at least one of the pieces of equipment with this tank, as it is pretty sluggish compared to some of the other light tanks at Era 2. Next, we're going to get on to the gun, and we've already talked a little bit about the guns, but we're going to now compare the guns of all three of these tanks, because there are some minute differences between the RDF LT and the Mauler, and of course it will differ significantly from the Armadillo. So the RDF LT, as we have discussed, has a 6-shot auto-loading 75mm gun, as does the Mauler, and the Armadillo has that 16-shot auto-loader with 1440 damage per clip, and that deals that in 9 seconds. So the RDF LT fires APF SDS rounds as its standard and its premium ammunition choice, and it fires HE rounds as its third ammunition choice. That's the same as the Mauler. The Armadillo has AP, APDS and HE, as you can see here. In terms of the shell velocity, it's the same on the Mauler and the RDF LT. Best in this comparison, 1501 meters a second on the standard APF SDS rounds. And if you choose to use those premium rounds, that does go up to 1542 meters a second, which is very nice for firing at mid to long ranges. You don't have to give an awful lot of lead, but you will lose penetration over distance. So definitely bear that in mind, because the penetration, although it isn't absolutely horrific like on the Armadillo, it's still not quite as good as you'd hope, especially when you're firing at mid to long ranges. In terms of the shell velocity on the HE rounds, 905 meters a second, pretty decent for an HE round. Not quite as good as the HE rounds on the Armadillo, which are 970 meters a second, but you're going to be rarely using these rounds and mainly relying on your standard and premium rounds. In terms of the alpha damage, same on the Mauler and the RDF LT, 320 on your standard and premium rounds and 390 on your HE rounds. That's much higher than the Armadillo's alpha damage, which is 90 on its standard and premium rounds and 145 on its HE rounds, due to the fact it only has a small 60mm caliber auto-loading gun. In terms of the penetration, 354mm of standard penetration on the RDF LT and on the Mauler. Much better than the 182mm of penetration on the Armadillo. So that's good news for those free-to-play players that don't want to fire too many premium rounds and make the most credits that you can. And again, with the premium rounds, 418mm of penetration, much better than the Armadillo, and that's the same for the Mauler and the RDF LT. And it goes to follow, as it's a slightly higher caliber gun, the RDF LT and the Mauler have better penetration on the HE rounds at 170mm compared to the 95 on the Armadillo, but again, you are going to be rarely using those rounds, but you definitely can penetrate. 170mm of HE pen is very nice for an Era 2 light tank, so if you wanted to try an HE magazine going after a light tank, you might well be lacking. With the improved alpha damage of 390 per shell, it could be worth taking at least 1 to 2 magazines depending on how you wish to set up your tank. I don't carry any HE rounds myself. I'd like to invest solely in the standard and the premium rounds at basically a 50-50 split. So good news there for the RDF LT. Pretty decent penetration on your standard and premium rounds, great shell velocity, and you do have that lovely improved alpha damage of 320, which does mean that you feel like you are chunking your opponents down with these magazines. Although it takes a lot longer, you feel like you're delivering them more consistently, at least in my opinion. So on to the gun handling and the DPM then. On the RDF LT you now have 1.7 seconds aim time. That's the same as the Mauler, which was balanced with the RDF LT, but it does have slightly different statistics in this regard, and we'll have a look at them below. The accuracy on the RDF LT 0.3, best in this comparison, slightly better than the Mauler and a lot better than the Armadillo. In terms of the DPM, 4042, of course that's dropped dramatically from what it used to, but it feels like you're able to deal with it so much more consistently now with the improved aim time and the accuracy, and those alpha damage means that you really feel like you're chunking your opponents down. DPM is the best in this comparison, better than the Mauler, and it's significantly better than the Armadillo, almost 1000 damage per minute better than the Armadillo, and it's much easier and much more consistent to deal it with that better penetration. 21-second reload now for the RDF LT, slightly better than the Mauler, which has a slightly longer reload for the magazine at 22.6 seconds. And the Armadillo fires the fastest, but that is a smaller caliber gun with a smaller clip potential, so that does go to reason. In terms of the ammo capacity now, 72 rounds for the RDF LT and the Mauler. That's enough ammunition for most battles that I've played in this vehicle. It's not quite the same as the Armadillo, which carries 192 rounds, but yeah, you do have 16 rounds per magazine with that 60mm gun, so it does make sense that it does have a higher number of rounds. And next we're going to get on to one of the best aspects of the RDF LT, and that's the gun depression. 15 degrees of gun depression is a lot better than the Mauler, which is a bit weird considering it is essentially the same vehicle, and a lot better than the Armadillo. This means it's very good on ridge lines, and you're able to poke the ridge lines like a medium tank would and get your gun down, expose your very small turret, and hopefully avoid taking fire as you don't have any armor at all. And lastly, in terms of gun elevation, it's got a pretty nice 40 degrees gun elevation, so you can shoot quite far up, especially when you're going downhill. The Armadillo does beat it in that regard at double that at 80 degrees of elevation, but 40 degrees of elevation is still pretty good news. And yeah, that's very useful, and you won't get caught out very often when you're going downhill and you're wanting to shoot at targets that are above you. I'm thinking of maps like Westfield when you're in the central area and you're trying to shoot up at tanks on the sort of zero line or up on the sort of train track area. You're able to get your gun up whilst also trying to maneuver downhill and get yourself out of range of the enemy tanks. So next we're going to have a look at my loadout and my commander setup and then see how that affects the stats. Then we're going to get stuck into the gameplay. So in terms of my equipment, I run the advanced concealment, I run gun stabilizer and traction system. In terms of the traction system, that is just to boost that top forward and reverse speed and improve the traverse speeds by a little bit as well. And in terms of the advanced concealment, that's obviously to improve the pretty nice standard still concealment of this vehicle. Instead of running the gun stabilizer, as this gun feels very accurate with this setup, you could run the advanced powertrain, and I'd probably recommend it if you are finding the accuracy. It's a little bit overkill with my setup. It's definitely worth tweaking and using the advanced powertrain as well to boost that horsepower up, get up to a higher top speed a little bit quicker, and hopefully that will allow you to get into better positions and to avoid taking fire. Next, my commander then, I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Rapid Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage, Expertise, and Muffled Shots. So 6th Sense and Born Leader standard on every commander that I have. Rapid Loading to help the DPM out. Then I've got those whole host of gun handling skills, 4 of them, and 2 concealment perks, as I feel the view range is good enough and I want to try and get the concealment down as low as possible. Just a mention about the concealment perks on light tanks. You get a concealment bonus when you're moving. It's the same as when you are still. So don't use silent driving. It will not work on light vehicles. I know some people, myself included, have got caught out by that before. But if you run that same setup, you'll be looking at a still concealment rating of 128 meters according to the stats in the garage, which is very low indeed, meaning it's got a very nice still concealment rating. In terms of the view range, which I seem to have forgot to have put there, I will just find out what that is by selecting the tank in the garage and having a look. It's 573 meters, so I'm going to put that in now just for completion so I don't get annoyed that I have missed it. So yeah, a nice view range and a very nice still concealment rating. You're very sneaky, especially if you're using the pretty small profile nature of this tank, using the different bushes and trees on the maps to try and keep this tank hidden. And of course that is with using concealment in the appearances tab on the RDF LT. And now the fact that I've used the traction system has boosted my top forward speed to 70.84 kilometers an hour, much better than it was previously, and it's also boosted my reverse speed over that 30 kilometer an hour barrier to 30.14 kilometers an hour. It's also improved my whole traverse by 4 degrees a second to 44 degrees a second, making it much more nimble when you are at your top speed. Means you're able to circle people better and also try to evade fire. And the gun handling skills have boosted my turret traverse up to just shy of 70 degrees a second, so you really do snap your gun around, and it does feel very nice when you are circling tanks or when you're keeping track of enemies whilst you are moving. That turret traverse is very nice indeed. And lastly, in terms of the gun handling and the DPM, my aim time's gone to 1.63 seconds, which is very, very nice indeed. And that accuracy is 0.26. It does feel extremely accurate, and I'll probably switch my gun stabilizer out at some point for the advanced powertrain just to boost that mobility up that little bit more. But if you're finding this works for you, then yeah, this accuracy does feel very nice, and it allows you to deal your rounds much more consistently than the tank felt previously. And with that improved clip potential, although the DPM dropped by a lot, it does feel more consistent and it feels a lot more fun to play, in my opinion anyway, as hopefully I'll show you in the gameplay. My DPM went from 4042 to 4.5 thousand damage per minute, which means that my reload for the 6 shells is now 17.92 seconds, which it was 21 seconds previously. So I think that feels pretty decent. I think the balancing has done this tank a favour. I think it was done pretty well. Of course, the DPM has dropped, but yeah, as I keep saying, it does feel more consistent and it feels a lot more fun to play. But that's enough waffling from me about the stats of the RDF LT. Now going to jump into the first of 3 gameplays. So we are now into the first gameplay of today's video, and we are here on Pearl River in the RDF LT. We're in a standard battle and we have spawned in the northwestern portion of the map, and I'm going to head down the 1, 2 and 3 lines to try and spot enemies advancing from their base, and hopefully we'll get some nice assistance early on. And you can see with the buffed terrain resistances and the fact that we're using a traction system with the build that I use on this tank, we've got ourselves into position first ahead of any other tanks on our team. And of course sometimes that's down to people not knowing where to go, and of course sometimes it's about experience on the maps, but it means that we're able to get into a advantageous position here on this ridge line and we can utilize the 15 degrees of gun depression that this tank has, whereas something like the T92, which is arguably one of the worst light tankers in Era 2, has to expose a lot more of his tank to get over this ridgeline. We managed to get 5 rounds, I believe, there into the BMP-1, and unfortunately, as always happens, sod's law, we would bounce the last round off the side of the BMP-1, which is a little bit annoying, leaving a very sneaky light tank on the battlefield, but we have severely wounded him, and we have now reloaded in a pretty quick time. The DPM has been decreased, as we have discussed, if you have watched the part of this video discussing the stats, but not to a level where it's unplayable, and that higher alpha damage just means that these clips do feel more meaningful, and it feels like you are able to deal a lot more damage over the course of a battle, and yeah, it just feels more consistent. The aim time and accuracy have been improved, and as you can see here, there's not much bloom on the reticle, meaning if you felt this was overkill, you definitely could use the advanced powertrain, and the mobility would be that little bit better. I don't think the DPM increase or the reload increase and the DPM decrease is a bad thing for this vehicle. It means you are able to sort of think about your next move, and it doesn't mean you feel rushed into making pressure plays like rushing in on a tank because you're reloading so quickly. And I think it would actually help some players out. It might hinder some of the best players in the game, but for most of the player base, this balancing or this buff, overall buff to the tank, I would say, has benefited this tank, and it feels a lot more fun to play, a lot more consistent, and it's now definitely a light tank I would think about playing on the battlefield, whereas before I would go for something like BMP2 or the AMX 13 SS11 TCA, which is my favourite premium light tank, because it has the multiple weapon system, the ATGMs, and it does have more firepower. But now this does feel competitive, and I think, yeah, it's in a pretty decent place. So now we're using this gun at sort of mid to long ranges here, nice shell velocity, very good accuracy over that ridge line, and now we're going to have to try and go in and defend the caps, our cap, because everyone else is just sat back from it. They are spotted, and hopefully we are able to get a reset in and allow the 2 tanks that are on our team that are capping the enemy's base to take this one down for us. I'm happy to take a few shells here. We're going to get 1 into the Rise, 1 into the T62, pop our smoke consumable, which does help with the passive and active concealment of this tank, and then we're going to use the last 3 rounds I didn't reload to try and get another reset on the base, but we have managed to take this one down. A very quick battle where we win by capture circle. We had enough mobility, enough firepower to get a decent 5.9k direct damage, 1.2k assistance. We got some kills there. We had 2 kills, finished top of our team, a nice profit of just shy of 200,000 silver, and we made it possible for our team to have the victory by resetting the base there with the assistance of some of our friendly tanks as well. And that's a pretty decent haul for a 3.5 minute battle, as the battles seem to go ever quicker. We're now going to head on into the second battle and see what we can pull off in the RDF LT. So now we are into the second battle of today's video in the RDF LT, and we are here on Thiepval Ridge, and this is one of my favourite spawns on this map in the northwestern corner, because we can race along the A line and we're able to try and spot the hill that is situated straight in front of us, just slightly to the right, and it's a great location to get some nice assistance early on in this map from this spawn. And you can also shoot across the map into the centre, and it's got some nice trees there and some bushes to stay hidden. Again, with the boosted mobility, with the better terrain resistances, thanks to the balancing, and thanks to using the traction system, we are getting into position in a pretty decent speed, and it's not too bad going uphill with a decent power to weight ratio, and it would be even better. Again, I'd just like to highlight, if you use the advanced powertrain for a slightly reduced cost to your accuracy and gun handling, but it does feel very nice indeed now. And this kind of ridgeline is perfect for this tank because you have that 15 degrees of gun depression. We can pop up, just expose our very small turret, and the minimal part of our hull as we can as we try and get shots at these tanks. I'm not feeling like going for a full reload at the moment, as I feel like I might have an opportunity to shoot at any kind of given time at the moment. So we're going to come around here. I lazily auto-lock the first shot. It's just a habit that I can't seem to break sometimes, but when we are aiming, we're managing to go through every time. At this poor Conqueror, we get the rest of our magazine into him. Going to go for a reload, reset, and try and find our next target. And after our initial little spotting sort of start to this battle, we're not going to advance it further down the 9-0 line towards the south. We're just going to stay in this position because we have some nice side shots at tanks that are trying to push towards our base. You have to be a little bit careful, of course, where I am now, because I will be visible with the true vision system and I'm skylining myself on this ridgeline, but you have decent enough mobility to pull back, and it is one of the reasons why I do run that enhanced smoke screen. In case I do start to take fire, I'm able to obscure the enemy's vision and hopefully stay out of harm's way. And this is where that fantastic turret reverse speed comes into play. I wanted to auto-lock there so I was able to escape without doing something that I nearly did there and jump off that rock and nearly self-destruct, but we managed to get a few shots into the very dangerous Scorpion 90, another Era 2 Tech Tree light tank, which is very dangerous, and we were able to get out of harm's way, take no shots, but also get 3 shots on the move because our turret traverse was able to keep up with that Scorpion 90. And when you combine that with the very nice shell velocity, we were able to hit every round there. And as you can see, on a moving Scorpion 90, we were able to give a decent amount of lead and hit a very fast moving tank. And now we're just getting the last of our clip out there. Going to pull back behind this ridgeline, make the most of our small profile nature in the RDF LT, and we're going to try and pick our next target. And I'm always scanning the map or the mini map, trying to think about my next location or my next target. I don't want to try and waste too many opportunities with this tank because you do have a slightly decreased DPM than it previously had, and that a lot of other Era 2 light tanks have. So you definitely want to make the most of your magazines, try and hit every round in them, at least sort of 5 out of 6, and make sure you make your damage count. We do have nice side shots at tanks that are situated here in the center of the map. I'm just waiting for another one to present itself. I'm trying to move as little as possible here on this ridge line to try and reduce the amount of vision that people will have on me due to the true vision system, but it looks like this game is nearly over. I've probably waited a little bit too long. I should have advanced about a minute ago, but we have now made the decision to advance, and we're going to go for a full reload by pressing the left on the D-pad, and now we're going to advance while we are reloading, so that when we get to these 2 targets here, we have reloaded a full magazine, and hopefully we can get the last little bit of damage in this battle and pick up another W for this video, as I think my previous one had quite a lot of losses, so hopefully we can rectify that here with a nice victory. Again, circling, the turrets keeping track of our enemy very nicely indeed. Using our mobility, we don't have to aim there, we're in perfect distance on a tank that we can penetrate every time, and we managed to pick up some more damage, taking our total to 6.6k direct damage, 644 assistance, 5 kills, 1.4k base experience. We finished MVP on our team and just shy of 200,000 silver profit. Again, that's with a premium account. And now we're going to head on into the best battle that I've had for a long time in this tank, or since this tank has been released, in the 3rd and final battle. Welcome to the 3rd and final gameplay of today's video. We are here on Halfaya Pass in the RDF LT, and you're joining me just over a minute into this battle, as the first minute has just consisted of me getting into this position, just scouting the area with the true vision system, but also trying to get some vision for my team. We haven't moved too far away from our own base yet, as I don't have too much support here, and it's a very large map, and you definitely can get yourself into trouble. So we're going to push forward a little bit here and see if we can not get some view range or some shots on tanks that are situated in the centre. And the 15 degrees of gun depression on this tank coming into play here, very, very handy. We are able to expose the slightest part of our turret, and we're going to see if we can get some shots on this FE4-211 on the weak point, which is situated below the turret in the middle of the hull. And at this distance, it's unlikely we're going to penetrate even sort of 50% of our rounds, but we have managed there to get 3 rounds into that FE4-211. And with the improved alpha damage on this 75mm gun now at 320, 963 damage to an FE4-211, it's nothing to be sniffed at. We pull back behind the ridgeline and we reload. We get some vision on some more tanks that are in the centre. We do take a round. I'm not sure if that was a speculative shot or the FE4-211 saw us, but we're going to pop up again. The FE4-211 has a very slim shot of us to hit. His round goes straight over our turret, and we're able to get a few rounds there into the FE4-211, and we've taken a very dangerous heavy tank down now to a one-shot for most of our team. We're going to fall back again, reload, try and pick our next target. I was thinking about going to help take out that heavy tank, but it looks like our team are more than capable, and I'm just going to pop up again and see if I can get a few more rounds before advancing. And my next plan, or my next thought in this battle, was that most of the enemy look like they're going to be camping down the 8 and 9 line towards their base, and if I can get up behind them and sort of poke up that ridge line, I can either bait them over the ridge for my teammates that are just behind me, or I'm able to flank them and get some nice rear and side shots. So I'm going to put on my big boy pants, I'm going to brave the situation, and I'm going to push across the open in just a second. And if I feel like I'm not going to fire in the next 5 to 10 seconds in an autoloader, especially one that reloads in around 15 to 20 seconds, I'm going to go for a full reload, and whilst I'm advancing into position, I'm able to get my rounds in so that when I do reach my final destination, I do have my full magazine potential and my full firepower at my fingertips, and hopefully we are able to take out the next target. So we're advancing over the open here. Pretty nice mobility with the buff terrain resistances and that traction system helping. The advanced powertrain here would have helped us a little bit more get up this very steep slope, but for a very steep slope this is still a pretty decent speed even for a light tank. We're going to stop here, see if we can get some side shots at these tanks that are crossing, trying to get every kind of opportunity to whittle the enemy down. I think that was just poor aim from me, and also the fact that they are below a ridgeline as well, meaning that we don't have the full side of those tanks to shoot at. And I'm going to hang around here as it looks like they might expose themselves for me to get a few shots in. It's a very slow paced battle on this map sometimes, and that does benefit this tank now that it does have that slightly decreased DPM, so we are able to make these magazines count. And now we're just looking around waiting for our next opportunity. We do see that tank that has come back out into the centre, but he's too far down now. We get one round into that tank there over that ridge line, and we go for a full reload. I'm going to quickly pop up here, try and get some vision on any tanks that are sitting around here at the enemy base, and then I can come up behind tanks that are situated straight in front of me in sort of D7, D8, hopefully surprise them and take them out of the game. And now we do have that higher clip potential. I know I can take out this M60A2 before he turns round and manages to get a shot into us. We're going to go for a last remaining shell on this Magach 3, but we think better of it, go for a reload, and it doesn't look like he's turning around for us. He's not paying attention to his minimap, which means that we are able to sit on this ridge line, and as we are advancing, we're nearing our reload and we can hopefully take him out. But the next contender comes in, it's this BMP2. We managed to get every round there on the move with the great accuracy of this tank, take out that very dangerous tank. I was keeping my smoke consumable there in case he fired the ATGM. I was going to fire it, move a little bit side to side, and hopefully the ATGM would have missed us. We're going to go for a reload and come up behind that Maguk 3. Again, it doesn't look like he's really paying that much attention to us at the moment, so we look pretty safe in this position. We're in a very advantageous position. We've created a crossfire by coming up behind the enemy tanks, and now we're able to get some rounds in on another Maguk 3 there at distance. Very consistent, nice alpha damage, and we take him out of the game. Reverse up with the good mobility behind this foliage, wait for this FV4-11 to start pushing forwards, and we're going to be easily able to penetrate with the standard rounds here on this FV4-11. And I was very fortunate that I didn't need more than 2 rounds there, or more than 1 round, as we had only 1 premium round, 1 standard round left, I should say, and now we're on to the premium rounds. It does carry enough ammunition. I definitely want to carry plenty of premium ammunition, as I want to make myself as competitive as possible on the battlefield, and it still makes a pretty decent chunk of silver. We're coming up behind where this Maguk 3 was. He's not here anymore, but we do have some side shots into this FV4-11. 2 of them do get absorbed, which at this distance with APF SDS rounds is more than likely going to happen against a tank that is so well armoured. So we're going to go for another reload, going to wait a little bit, and hopefully we are able to come up behind the enemies and get some more damage. We are capping at this point in time. I'm trying to tell my team not to cap, although it is the smart option, as I'm feeling like there's plenty of damage left in this game for us. I'm waiting for those 2 tanks to make the push into our cap circle, and then I'm able to make use of the distraction that hopefully my teammates are causing that are capping, and I'm able to get some damage into the rear of these tanks. Making our way down the slope there very carefully, as I seem to be killing myself a lot recently with the self-destruct going over rocks, and now we're going to auto-lock onto the back of this tank, and now I'm going to penetrate every round here, and we managed to leave that Maguk 3 on a 1 shot for everyone on our team on 41 hit points, and we're just trying to keep behind him and not get ourselves shot. Going to disengage, get a reload off, and then pick our next target, and now it's 2 against 4. We do have 2 extra tanks. We are capping, which is probably the right move here from our 2 tanks in the capture circle, but I really want to get some more damage in this game. It's already a very nice game. We've picked up 7.5k direct damage, 1690 assistance, 4 kills, and we have somehow blocked 285 damage from a lucky ricochet. And now it's all about finding the last remaining tank on the enemy team, which is the FV4-11. I'm assuming he's going to be somewhere in the centre, coming from the south to try and get a reset on the capture circle, which we are capping. There's only 5 seconds left, and it was at this point I thought about just jumping off the cliff when the game ended, and I'm lucky that I managed to react in time. As the reset happens, the enemy FV4-11 has found our 2 tanks that were capping, and we would have capped by now if I had joined them in the cap, and I was feeling pretty guilty about the enemy BMP2 there getting taken out. I felt confident enough that we would all be able to handle this FV4-11. It's probably the greedy play here to go for this extra bit of damage, but I have 2.2k hit points left. I have a full magazine. I do have a heavy tank with me, and I feel like we can still easily take out this FV4-11. So we're going to come round to the rear of this FV4-11. I fire the first at a little bit of an angle, and we bounce. We get one in, bounce a second, and now I'm going to make sure I get these last 2 remaining shells into this tank. We pop our smoke screen to cause a little bit of a distraction, and we're going to try and get a shell right into the rear of this tank. Take my time. I can definitely take a round here. I've got enough hit points, and we managed to get the last kill of that game in a nice victory for the RDF LT. We finished in the MVP slot with 5 kills, 8.3k direct damage, 1690 assistance, 1632 base experience points, and a premium account profit of 155,000 silver, and because we used so many of our premium rounds, we would have still made a 61,000 silver profit without a premium account. So I think that the balancing was done very well. I think it's done this tank a little bit of a favour, and it will help people play it a little bit more sensibly. You don't have to keep going in and in and in with that really high DPM that it used to have, but low alpha. It feels more consistent, and I think it's a pretty good job from Wargaming. So I hope you've enjoyed this sort of relook at the RDF LT and small review of this tank. Thank you all so much for your patience whilst I've been busy with my family stuff. I am now back playing, and the videos will hopefully grow in their pace over the coming couple of weeks. I hope you're enjoying the new season, and until next time, thank you for your support. I'll see you on the battlefield.